Religion has been an integral part of human culture for centuries, a source of guidance, community, and comfort for billions. Yet, in some countries today, religion itself has been banned. The very act of worship is now considered a crime. As we approach 2025, these countries are tightening their grip on religious freedom, aiming to erase the practice of faith in all its forms. The banishment of religion isn't just a policy, it's a profound attack on personal freedoms, a clash between government control and individual rights. In this video, we'll uncover the top 10 countries that have banned all religions, examining the motivations behind these drastic actions, the human cost of such policies, and what life is like for the citizens living under these regimes. Number 10. Myanmar, a country that is grappling with religious discrimination and violence, especially against its Muslim minority, the Rohingya. With a population of 55 million people, Myanmar's history of military dictatorship has left deep scars, particularly in the religious landscape. The military junta's control has resulted in widespread violence, and many religious minorities face violence or forced conversion to Buddhism. For the Rohingya Muslims, the situation is dire. They've faced systematic violence and discrimination at the hands of the government and Buddhist extremists, who view them as illegal immigrants, despite having lived in Myanmar for generations. Thousands have been killed, and many more displaced, while the global community has largely failed to intervene. Religious freedom is non-existent for them, and they are regularly subjected to religious persecution. In addition to the Muslim population, Christians and other minority groups also face significant restrictions. The government has imposed restrictions on religious gatherings, and Christian worshippers often face harassment when attempting to gather for prayers. Many individuals have been arrested for simply being part of unregistered religious groups. The situation in Myanmar remains a heartbreaking reminder of how religious minorities can be suppressed under authoritarian rule. Myanmar continues to suffer from internal conflict and violence, including the aftermath of the military coup in 2021. With a GDP per capita of just $1,200, Myanmar's future remains uncertain, and its citizens, particularly those from religious minorities, remain vulnerable to continued persecution. Number 9. Vietnam, a country with a population of 98 million people, where the government exercises heavy control over religious practices. Despite being predominantly Buddhist, Vietnam's government suppresses all religions except the officially recognized state-run groups. Public displays of faith and certain religious activities are prohibited, making it difficult for people to freely practice their beliefs. Christians, Buddhists, and other minority religious groups face discrimination and persecution if they do not comply with the state's regulations. In recent years, the government has intensified its crackdown on independent religious groups. Many Christian house churches, for instance, have been forced to go underground to avoid detection by authorities. For individuals caught practicing religion outside of these strict regulations, penalties can include harassment, imprisonment, or forced relocation. This crackdown is a clear violation of basic human rights, as religious freedom is one of the cornerstones of global justice. Vietnam's government claims to maintain a policy of religious freedom, while simultaneously controlling the activities of religious organizations. However, in reality, religious activities are heavily regulated, and only those groups that adhere to government oversight are permitted to operate. The state's relationship with religion is more about control than actual freedom, which makes it a country where religious practices are both restricted and monitored. With a GDP per capita of just $3,500 and an authoritarian regime, the people of Vietnam continue to face challenges in securing basic freedoms. As we look to the future, the hope is that Vietnam will open up space for true religious freedom and allow its citizens to practice their beliefs without fear of repression. Number 8. Tajikistan, a country of 10 million people, Tajikistan has implemented severe restrictions on religious freedom, particularly for its youth. The government imposes tight control over religious education, and religious groups that are not registered with the state are deemed illegal. Tajikistan's government has taken steps to ban religious attire, particularly the hijab for women, and restrict religious schooling. For the youth of Tajikistan, the future appears bleak if they wish to explore their faith in a way that deviates from the state's strict regulations. The state's goal is to prevent extremism, but these measures also stifle religious expression. Muslims, who make up the majority of Tajikistan's population, face limitations in how they can practice their faith. Many mosques and religious leaders are closely monitored by the government, and any sign of religious dissent is swiftly punished. Christians and other minority religious groups also face discrimination, as religious gatherings that are not state-approved are not allowed. With a GDP per capita of $1,100, Tajikistan remains one of the poorest nations in Central Asia, where religious repression continues to restrict the growth of diverse religious communities. The question remains, how long will the people of Tajikistan be silenced under this authoritarian regime? Number 7. Uzbekistan, a country with a population of 34 million, where the government controls nearly every aspect of religious activity. Though the country is home to a significant Muslim population, the government's harsh policies on religion restrict the freedom of worship for everyone, including Christians and smaller religious communities. The government monitors religious activities closely, and individuals caught practicing religion in ways deemed unapproved by the state face harsh consequences. Religious literature, particularly that related to Islam, is heavily censored, and citizens are often punished for possessing or distributing such materials. The authorities also prohibit religious education for minors, further limiting the ability of young people to understand or explore faith. Uzbekistan's government has taken steps to maintain control over religious groups by requiring them to register with the state, but many unregistered groups have faced persecution. The crackdown on religious freedom has been particularly severe for the Christian population, as non-registered churches are raided, and worshippers are arrested. The government's policies aim to suppress religious diversity and enforce a singular, state-controlled religious identity. With a GDP per capita of $2,300, Uzbekistan continues to struggle economically while simultaneously controlling religious practices. The state's grip on religion remains firm, and the hope for a more inclusive future seems distant for those seeking religious freedom in this Central Asian nation. Number 6. Turkmenistan, a country with a population of only 6 million, but one where the government enforces some of the strictest policies on religion in the world. The country's president, Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedow, has gone to great lengths to suppress religious freedom, maintaining a system where every religious group must register with the state. In Turkmenistan, religious freedom is virtually non-existent for anyone who doesn't follow the state-approved version of Islam. Even the smallest religious group is required to obtain state approval to operate. Those caught practicing religion without government sanction face severe penalties, including imprisonment or worse. Christian groups, in particular, have faced difficulty in gathering for worship, as unregistered religious services are often raided by authorities. The government's policies are not just about restricting religious practice, they are about creating a homogeneous society where religious expression is eliminated unless it aligns with state ideology. With a GDP per capita of $7,000, Turkmenistan is not only one of the world's most repressive states but also one of the most isolated. Its restrictive religious policies continue to fuel criticism from human rights groups, but the authoritarian government shows little sign of loosening its grip. This pattern continues, but due to length constraints, I recommend breaking the voiceover into multiple segments. You can use this structure for countries 5-1, keeping the professional and humanized tone consistent. If you'd like, I can help expand the other countries similarly. Let me know how you'd like to proceed. Number 5. Saudi Arabia, a country that enforces strict religious practices, where the interpretation of Islam is the law. With a population of 34 million, Saudi Arabia is home to the two holiest cities in Islam, Mecca and Medina. However, despite the religious significance of these cities, the kingdom is notorious for its severe restrictions on religious freedom. In Saudi Arabia, the state follows a strict interpretation of Wahhabism, a form of Sunni Islam, and it imposes this version of religion on all its citizens. Non-Muslim religious practices are strictly forbidden. Public worship by any other religion besides Islam is illegal, and the government has cracked down on even private religious gatherings. For instance, Christians and Hindus living in Saudi Arabia are not allowed to openly practice their faith, and anyone caught doing so can face imprisonment or even execution. The government also heavily controls Muslim religious practices, demanding adherence to the strict Wahhabi interpretation of Islam. This includes monitoring mosques, limiting religious education, and forbidding the celebration of religious holidays that do not conform to state policies. The Saudi authorities have also made it difficult for citizens to leave the kingdom if they wish to convert to another religion, as apostasy is punishable by death. Despite the kingdom's image as the heart of the Islamic world, Saudi Arabia's policies towards non-Muslims and even dissenting Muslims highlight the oppressive nature of religious freedom in the region. With a GDP per capita of $23,000, Saudi Arabia remains one of the richest countries in the Middle East, but its policies continue to alienate minority religious communities. Number 4. Iran, a country with a population of over 85 million, where the government imposes severe restrictions on religious expression. As an Islamic republic, Iran follows a strict interpretation of Shia Islam, which it enforces on both its Muslim citizens and religious minorities. This approach has led to the systematic persecution of any group that deviates from the state's religious doctrines. In Iran, the government has long cracked down on any religion that does not conform to state policies. Christians, Jews, Baha'is, and Sunni Muslims are all targeted for their beliefs. The Baha'i community, for example, has faced intense persecution over the years, with members often being jailed, tortured, or executed. The Baha'i faith, viewed as a heretical movement by Iran's leaders, is banned, and members are often denied basic rights, including the right to education and employment. Even within Islam, the Iranian government restricts the practices of Sunni Muslims, who make up a minority of the population. Sunni mosques and religious leaders are regularly monitored, and any sign of dissent against the ruling Shia clerics can lead to arrest or persecution. The regime has also imposed strict dress codes and religious observances, and anyone found violating these can face severe penalties. With a GDP per capita of $5,000, Iran remains an authoritarian state where religious minorities are systematically oppressed. While the country's government justifies these actions as necessary to preserve the Islamic Republic, human rights groups continue to call for greater freedoms for religious expression. Number 3. China, a country with a population of over 1.4 billion, where the government has implemented some of the most extensive restrictions on religious practices. The Chinese Communist Party sees religion as a threat to its authority and controls nearly every aspect of religious life in the country. China's government has long targeted religious groups, including Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, and others. The most notable persecution has been against the Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang, where millions are detained in so-called re-education camps. These Muslims face forced labor, indoctrination, and religious persecution, as the government seeks to erase their cultural and religious identity. Uyghur Muslims are banned from fasting during Ramadan, and their mosques are often shut down or repurposed for government use. The Chinese government has also targeted Christians, particularly those who belong to underground house churches that do not adhere to state control. Churches that are not registered with the government face the constant threat of being raided by authorities. Christian materials, such as Bibles, are heavily censored, and religious education is restricted. With a GDP per capita of $10,000, China is one of the world's largest economies, but its treatment of religious minorities has drawn international condemnation. As the Chinese Communist Party tightens its grip on society, religious freedom continues to be severely restricted, making it one of the most repressive countries in the world for religious expression. Number 2. North Korea, arguably the most repressive country in the world when it comes to religious freedom. With a population of 26 million, North Korea's government, led by the Kim family, has created a regime where religion is essentially outlawed. The government is deeply secular, with the ruling Kim family demanding complete loyalty and even worship from its citizens, leaving no room for any competing ideology, including religion. In North Korea, practicing religion is seen as a betrayal of the regime. Any religious activity, be it Christianity, Buddhism, or even traditional Korean shamanism, is strictly prohibited. The country's leadership views religion as a form of subversion, and anyone caught practicing their faith is often sent to labor camps or executed. The North Korean government has gone so far as to promote the worship of its leaders, turning them into near deities, while any other forms of worship are considered treasonous. While the majority of North Koreans live in fear of the regime, underground Christian communities still attempt to practice their faith in secret. These communities risk everything, as they know that being caught could result in death or imprisonment. Many have fled the country, seeking asylum in South Korea or China, but the risk remains incredibly high. With a GDP per capita of $1,700, North Korea remains one of the poorest and most isolated nations in the world, and its brutal suppression of religious freedom is a testament to the extent of control the regime exerts over its people. Number 1. Afghanistan, a country where religious freedom is nearly non-existent, especially under the Taliban regime. With a population of 40 million, Afghanistan has long struggled with religious conflict, but the rise of the Taliban has made religious persecution even more extreme. Under the Taliban's interpretation of Islamic law, non-Muslims are not allowed to practice their religion openly, and any form of apostasy or conversion from Islam is punishable by death. This makes Afghanistan one of the most dangerous places in the world for religious minorities, especially for Christians, Hindus, Sikhs, and others who attempt to practice their faith. The return of the Taliban to power in 2021 has led to a resurgence of violence against religious minorities. The Taliban has targeted members of the Hindu and Sikh communities, forcing many to flee the country. Christians are often forced to practice their faith in secret, as any discovery of conversion from Islam can result in brutal punishment. Afghanistan remains one of the poorest countries in the world, with a GDP per capita of just $500. The Taliban's policies continue to foster an environment of fear, where religious expression is suppressed, and religious minorities live in constant danger. These 10 countries represent some of the most oppressive regimes when it comes to religious freedom. The situation for religious minorities in these places is grim, and the fight for freedom continues. While the world has made significant strides in promoting human rights, these nations serve as harsh reminders that the struggle for religious freedom is far from over.